The crisp November air filled my lungs as I balanced two homemade pumpkin pies while walking up the familiar stone path to my childhood home. After 3 months of overtime and wedding planning, I couldn't wait to see everyone. The golden light spilling from the windows promised warmth and laughter inside. But the moment I pushed open that heavy oak door, my mother Martha's sharp voice cut through the turkey-scented air like a blade. "Crystal, we need to talk about Emma's rent. Now." My father Robert stood behind her arms, crossed blocking my path to the dining room, where 20 relatives had suddenly gone silent, all eyes turning toward us. I carefully set the pies on the entrance table, trying to keep my voice steady while family members craned their necks from the dining room to watch our confrontation. "Mom, I already explained last week. I've covered Emma's rent 3 times this year. Nathan and I are saving for our wedding in June, and I simply can't keep subsidizing her lifestyle." My mother's face flushed crimson as she raised her voice for everyone to hear. "Lifestyle. Your sister is struggling and you're sitting there with your fancy marketing manager's salary, planning some extravagant wedding while she can barely afford groceries." "That's not true, and you know it," I protested, feeling heat rise in my cheeks as Aunt Patricia peered around the corner along with several cousins I hadn't seen in years. Martha turned toward the dining room, addressing our audience directly. "Everyone should know that Crystal makes $78,000 a year. $78,000. And she can't spare $800 a month to help her baby sister keep a roof over her head." Gasps echoed from the other room. My grandmother Eleanor slowly stood from her chair, looking concerned. Uncle James fumbled with something in his pocket while my teenage cousin Brandon held up his phone, apparently texting the drama to friends in real time. "Mom, please." I begged, mortified that my salary was now public knowledge to extended family members I barely knew. "This isn't appropriate. Can we discuss this privately?" "Privately." Robert finally spoke, his deep voice carrying that familiar edge of disappointment. "You want privacy when you're letting your sister potentially become homeless, while you're spending thousands on wedding flowers and photographers." Emma sat at the far end of the table, staring at her phone screen with an expression I couldn't read. Her blonde hair fell forward, hiding most of her face, but I noticed her perfectly manicured nails tapping rapidly on her device. Designer jeans, a new Michael Kors bag beside her chair, fresh highlights that probably cost $200. The signs of financial struggle were notably absent. "I need you to transfer that money right now," Martha demanded, pulling out her own phone. "$800 for November's rent plus $200 for utilities. $1,000, Crystal. That's nothing to someone with your salary." "Mom, I've already given Emma $2,400 this year alone. That's on top of my student loans, car payments, and trying to save for a down payment on a house. I'm not a bank." The front door opened behind me and Nathan walked in, carrying a bouquet for my mother and a bottle of wine for dinner. His warm smile faded instantly as he took in the scene, me cornered by the door, my parents blocking my path, and a room full of relatives watching like we were some reality TV show. "What's going on?" he asked quietly, moving to stand beside me. "Crystal is refusing to help her sister," Martha announced to him as if he were a judge who just entered the courtroom. "Maybe you can talk some sense into her about family obligations." Nathan's jaw tightened. He'd heard enough stories about my family's financial dynamics, but this was his first time witnessing it firsthand. "I think Crystal has been more than generous with Emma. Maybe it's time Emma figured out her own finances." "You stay out of this," Robert warned, pointing a thick finger at my fiancé. "This is family business." "Actually," Uncle James suddenly stood up, his usually jovial face, serious. "I think everyone here needs to hear something." He pulled out his phone with trembling hands. "I've been keeping quiet for too long, but this has gone far enough. I've been recording conversations at these family gatherings for the past year because I suspected something wasn't right." Martha's face went pale. "James, what are you talking about?" "This," he said, hitting play on his phone. My mother's voice filled the room from a recording. "Emma doesn't need to worry about finding a better job. Crystal will always pay. She's too soft to say no if we pressure her enough. Just keep asking and eventually she'll cave like she always does." The dining room erupted. Forks clattered against plates as people shifted in their seats. Aunt Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Grandmother Eleanor gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "How dare you record private conversations?" Martha shrieked, but James held up his hand. "There's more." He continued scrolling to another file. This time, it was Robert's voice. "We trained Crystal well. She's been paying Emma's way since high school. Why should that stop now Emma knows how to work the guilt? She's got years of practice." My stomach churned. The pies I'd lovingly made that morning now seemed like offerings to people who saw me as nothing more than a checking account with legs. Nathan's hand found mine, squeezing gently, but I could feel him trembling with anger. "Is this true, Emma?" Grandmother Eleanor's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and disappointed. "Have you been manipulating your sister?" Emma finally looked up from her phone, and I was shocked to see not guilt, but irritation on her face. "It's not manipulation. Mom and Dad said Crystal wanted to help, that it made her feel good to support me." "I never said that," I protested, my voice cracking. "I helped because you told me you'd be evicted, that you couldn't afford food, that you were desperate." "Well, you never bothered to check if it was true." Emma shrugged, returning to her phone as if we were discussing the weather instead of years of deception. Nathan stepped forward, his professional composure cracking. "We're leaving. Crystal, get your coat." "She's not going anywhere." Robert moved to block the door completely. "Not until she transfers that money. Emma needs it by tomorrow or she's out on the street." "Then let her be out on the street." Nathan's voice rose. "Maybe it'll teach her some responsibility." Martha lunged forward, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. "You selfish little witch. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by abandoning your sister." I tried to pull away, but her nails dug into my skin through my sweater. "Mom, you're hurting me." "Good, maybe pain will teach you what disappointment feels like." Uncle James was still scrolling through his phone, his face growing darker. "Martha, Robert, I have 17 recordings here. 17 times you've discussed how to guilt Crystal into paying for things. This isn't family support, it's extortion." Extortion. Robert released his grip on the doorframe and advanced on his brother. "You sanctimonious piece of garbage. You've sat at our table for years and now you pull this stunt." "Someone had to protect Crystal." James shot back. "You've turned her into a cash machine for Emma's laziness." Brandon, my 16-year-old cousin, suddenly spoke up from the corner where he'd been filming on his phone. Aunt Martha, this is being live-streamed. Like 300 people are watching right now." The color drained from my mother's face as she released my arm. Red marks remained where her nails had been. "Turn that off immediately." "Can't." Brandon shrugged with teenage nonchalance. "It's on TikTok Live. People are already sharing it. Someone just commented that they know Crystal from work." My phone buzzed in my pocket. With shaking hands, I pulled it out to see a text from my boss. "Crystal, someone just sent me a concerning video. Are you safe? Do you need help?" The room exploded into chaos. Martha screaming at Brandon to delete the video. Robert threatening to sue James for illegal recording. Emma still texting, seemingly oblivious to the destruction around her. Relatives choosing sides, voices, rising accusations flying. Nathan grabbed my hand firmly. "We're leaving, now." This time, when we moved toward the door, the path was clear. Everyone was too busy arguing to stop us. As we stepped into the cool November evening, I heard Grandmother Eleanor's voice rise above the rest. "Enough, this family has become poison, and it ends tonight." The last thing I saw before Nathan pulled me to his car was Emma finally looking up from her phone, a strange smile playing at her lips, as if she'd just won some game I didn't even know we were playing. Nathan had barely started the engine when my phone rang. Grandmother Eleanor's name flashed on the screen. Against Nathan's protests, I answered. "Crystal, dear, please come back." Her voice trembled. "Your mother is having some kind of breakdown. She's throwing things and screaming about the live stream. We need to resolve this as a family." "Eleanor, I don't think that's a good idea," Nathan interjected, but I was already unbuckling my seatbelt. Despite everything, the guilt programming ran deep. If my grandmother needed me, I couldn't just drive away. 5 minutes, I told Nathan, just to make sure Grandma is okay. Walking back into that house was like entering a war zone. Plates lay shattered on the floor. The dining room tablecloth was askew gravy spilled across the white linen. My carefully made pies had been knocked to the ground, pumpkin filling splattered across the hardwood. There she is. Martha spotted me immediately. Do you see what you've done? Do you see how you've ruined Thanksgiving? I ruined it. Incredulity colored my voice. You're the one who turned dinner into a public shaming session. Brandon, are you still recording? Someone asked, and I noticed my young cousin had his phone out again, held low by his hip. Mom said to document everything for insurance, he replied, in case anybody breaks more stuff. Robert appeared from the kitchen, his face purple with rage. Your little stunt has gone viral. Martha's getting calls from her book club. My golf buddies are texting me. You've humiliated us in front of the entire town. Good. I found myself saying, surprising everyone, including myself. Maybe public shame will teach you what private conversations never could. I'm done being your personal ATM. Emma can figure out her own rent. You're done. Martha laughed, but it was an ugly sound devoid of humor. You're done when we say you're done. You owe us, Crystal. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. That's called parenting, I shot back. It's literally the bare minimum required by law. I don't owe you my entire paycheck because you did what you were legally obligated to do. Emma finally stood from her chair, her phone still in her hand. Crystal's right, she said quietly, and the room went silent in shock. This has gone too far. For a moment, hope bloomed in my chest. Maybe my sister was finally going to stand with me, finally going to admit the truth. That's why. Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. I think we should just cut Crystal off completely. She's clearly too selfish to be part of this family. I'll manage my rent without her. The betrayal hit harder than any physical blow could have. My own sister, whom I'd supported for years, was discarding me like trash the moment I stopped being useful. You manipulative little... I started, but Martha cut me off. Don't you dare speak to your sister that way. She grabbed my phone from my hand and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall with a crack, the screen shattering. You've done enough damage with your selfishness. That's assault, Nathan said firmly from the doorway. I'm calling the police. You'll do no such thing, Robert growled, moving toward Nathan with clenched fists. This is a family matter. I moved to retrieve my broken phone, but Martha blocked my path. You're not going anywhere until you apologize to Emma and transfer that money. I'm not giving her another cent, I said firmly, trying to step around my mother. That's when Robert grabbed my arm, his grip infinitely stronger than Martha's had been. You listen to me, you ungrateful brat. You'll do as you're told or you'll regret it. Let go of me. I tried to wrench my arm free, but his fingers only tightened. In my struggle to get away, I bumped into Martha, who shoved me hard. I stumbled backward directly into the china cabinet. The glass doors rattled, and I heard the sickening crack as the corner of a shelf broke. Dishes cascaded down porcelain, shattering around me. Sharp pain shot through my hand as a broken piece sliced across my palm. Look what you've done now, Martha screeched, as if I'd thrown myself into the cabinet on purpose. My grandmother's china. You've destroyed it. Blood dripped from my hand onto the white carpet. The room spun slightly, whether from shock or the impact, I wasn't sure. Through the chaos, I heard Brandon's voice. Holy crap, 12,000 people are watching now. Someone just said they're calling 911. Aunt Patricia pushed through the crowd of relatives, her nurse's training kicking in. Let me see that hand, Crystal. As she examined the cut, her expression darkened. She gently pushed up my sleeve, revealing not just today's red marks, but older bruises and various stages of healing marks I'd hidden for months. These aren't from today, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Crystal, how long has this been going on? How long have they been physically hurting you? It's not... They don't usually... I stammered, conditioned to protect my parents, even as blood dripped from my hand. "Don't you dare imply we abuse our daughter!" Robert roared, but Patricia stood her ground. "I'm a mandatory reporter," she announced. "What I'm seeing here is clear evidence of ongoing physical abuse. I'm calling Adult Protective Services and the police." "You're overreacting," Martha insisted, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "Crystal's always been clumsy. Tell them, Crystal. Tell them how you're always walking into things." Before I could respond, Emma's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Actually, there's something everyone should know." The room turned to her, and she held up her phone with a strange smile. "I've been recording too, not just tonight, but for months. And Crystal's not clumsy. I have video of Dad shoving her last Christmas, Mom slapping her at Easter. The bruises aren't accidents." My blood ran cold. "Emma, why didn't you—" "Because," she said simply, "I was building a case. See, I don't actually need rent money. I haven't needed it for over a year." The confession hung in the air like a physical presence. Martha's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Robert's grip on my arm loosened in shock. "What are you talking about?" I whispered, cradling my injured hand. Emma's smile widened. "I got promoted to senior developer at my startup 14 months ago. My salary is actually higher than yours, Crystal. $92,000 a year plus stock options." The room erupted again, but this time the anger wasn't directed at me. Relatives turned on each other, shouting accusations and denials. Through it all, Emma continued calmly. "I've been saving every penny Crystal gave me. $24,000 this year alone, plus the $36,000 from the previous 2 years. It's all sitting in a high-yield savings account. I was planning to buy a house next year." "You've been lying to your sister for 3 years." Grandmother Eleanor's voice shook with fury. "Taking money you didn't need while she struggled." Emma shrugged, that infuriating casualness still in place. "Mom and Dad told me to. They said it was teaching Crystal responsibility. Plus they got a cut. Didn't you wonder how they afforded that cruise last spring?" I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The room tilted and Nathan was suddenly there, his arm around my waist, holding me steady. "We're leaving," he said firmly. "And this time, anyone who tries to stop us will be dealing with assault charges." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Someone had indeed called emergency services. Brandon's live stream had probably saved me from worse injuries. Patricia finished wrapping my hand with cloth napkins. "You need stitches," she said quietly. "And Crystal, you need to file a police report. This has gone way beyond family dysfunction. This is criminal." As Nathan led me toward the door, Emma called out one more time. "Crystal, wait. I have all the evidence. Videos, recordings, bank statements showing the money transfers. I'll give it all to you for your case." I turned to look at my sister, searching for any sign of remorse in her face. "Why, Emma? Why collect evidence but let it continue for years?" Her expression finally cracked, showing something raw underneath. "Because I was scared they'd turn on me next. As long as you were the target, I was safe. I'm sorry, Crystal. I'm so sorry." The apology meant nothing. Not when I was bleeding, bruised, and publicly humiliated. Not when she'd watched me sacrifice and struggle while sitting on a fortune I'd given her. "Keep your evidence and your apologies," I told her as police cars pulled up outside. "I never want to see any of you again." The last image burned into my memory as we left was the 3 of them standing among the wreckage of Thanksgiving dinner. Martha crying about her ruined reputation, Robert blustering about lawsuits, and Emma clutching her phone like a lifeline, finally realizing that in winning her twisted game, she'd lost the only person who'd ever truly loved her unconditionally. The hospital bathroom was a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. White tiles, fluorescent lights, the sharp scent of antiseptic. I sat on the closed toilet lid, studying the neat row of stitches across my palm while waiting for the police to finish taking Nathan's statement. A soft knock interrupted my dazed contemplation. "Crystal, it's Grandma Eleanor. May I come in?" I unlocked the door to find my grandmother looking every one of her 78 years. The usual steel in her spine seemed to have melted, leaving her somehow smaller, more fragile. "Oh, sweetheart," she said gently, taking my bandaged hand. "I'm so sorry. I should have spoken up years ago." "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Eleanor sighed, leaning heavily against the sink. "Your mother learned this behavior somewhere, didn't she? I need to tell you something I've kept hidden for 40 years. She reached into her purse and pulled out a faded photograph. Two young women smiled at the camera, clearly sisters with the same nose and chin. One was obviously a younger Martha. The other I didn't recognize. "That's your Aunt Catherine," Eleanor explained. "Martha's older sister. You've never met her because Martha cut her off completely in 1984. I have an aunt. Why did Mom never mention her, Because Catherine finally stopped enabling Martha's greed." Eleanor's voice turned bitter. "Your mother did to Catherine exactly what she's done to you. Forced her to pay for Martha's college, her first car, her wedding. Catherine worked 3 jobs while Martha partied through school, always with some sob story about needing help." My phone buzzed with an incoming call. The screen was cracked, but still functional enough to see my boss's name. I let it go to voicemail, not ready to explain why videos of my family's Thanksgiving meltdown were trending on social media. Eleanor continued. "Catherine paid for everything until she finally got engaged herself. When she tried to save for her own wedding, Martha accused her of being selfish, of abandoning family. The guilt trips the public humiliation, even the physical altercations. History repeating itself. What happened to Catherine?" I asked, though I could guess. "She moved to Oregon, changed her phone number, and never looked back. Martha told everyone Catherine was dead to her, and eventually the family just forgot she existed. But I didn't forget. I've sent Christmas cards every year, keeping her updated on the family she left behind." A new knock interrupted us. Brandon peered around the door, looking uncharacteristically serious for a teenager. "Crystal, you need to see this. The live stream, it's everywhere." He held out his phone, showing me the view count 200,000 and climbing. The comments scrolled too fast to read, but I caught glimpses. Toxic family. Financial abuse. Call the police. Crystal deserves better. "There's more," Brandon said nervously. "People found Mom's Facebook. She's been posting about you for years. Really nasty stuff." With trembling fingers, I took his phone and searched for my mother's profile. Post after post filled the screen, dating back years. Martha portrayed me as an ungrateful daughter who refused to help family, a selfish career woman who valued money over relationships. But the worst were the recent ones claiming I had substance abuse problems. That's why they had to give my money to Emma instead. 300 comments on this one, Brandon showed me. All her church friends and book clubs saying how hard it must be to have an addict daughter. But now they're seeing the live stream and realizing she lied. My stomach churned. How long has she been telling people I'm an addict? "At least 2 years, Eleanor admitted. I tried to defend you, but Martha always had another story, another piece of evidence. She even told people that's why Nathan stayed with you, because he was enabling your supposed addiction." Nathan appeared in the doorway, his face grim. "The police want to talk to you now. But Crystal, there's something else. My sister just called. She's a paralegal, remember? She did some digging after seeing the video." He paused, clearly reluctant to add more pain to an already devastating day. "Your parents have been claiming you as a dependent on their taxes for the past 5 years. While you were living on your own, paying your own bills, they were getting tax breaks by lying to the IRS. The hits just kept coming. Financial fraud on top of assault, years of lies upon lies. But something else clicked into place, a memory from earlier. "Brandon," I said slowly, "you said the live stream showed Mom posting about me. Can you check if there are any posts about Emma needing rent money?" He scrolled through his phone, then shook his head. "Nothing. Lots of posts bragging about Emma's success, actually. Pictures from expensive restaurants, her vacation in Cabo last month, the new car she bought. She went to Cabo." I felt numb. "When I was eating ramen to afford her supposed rent." "Crystal." Another voice joined our bathroom congregation. Patricia squeezed past Nathan, still in her dinner clothes, but with a professional air about her. I've been on the phone with colleagues. As a nurse, I've seen this pattern before. Financial abuse often escalates to physical violence, exactly like what happened tonight. She pulled out her own phone, showing me screenshots. I've been documenting things too, but I was coward. I should have reported it sooner. These are from family gatherings over the past 3 years. Bruises you tried to hide, cuts you explained away that time you had a black eye at Christmas. I told everyone I walked into a door, I whispered. And we all pretended to believe it. Patricia's voice cracked. Crystal, I'm so sorry. We all failed you, but I'm not failing you anymore. I'm filing an official report with Adult Protective Services, and I'm testifying to everything I've witnessed. My cracked phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Crystal, this is Mrs. Henderson, your high school English teacher. I just saw the video. Honey, I've been waiting 15 years to tell someone what I suspected back then. My throat tightened. Mrs. Henderson had been my favorite teacher, the one who encouraged me to apply for college scholarships to dream bigger than my small town. Your parents came to me when you won that academic scholarship, she continued. They wanted me to convince you to turn it down to stay home and work to support Emma instead. When I refused, they threatened to sue me for inappropriate relationships with students. It was all lies, but I was young and scared. I kept quiet, but I saved every email, every threat. If you need them for evidence, they're yours. The bathroom was getting crowded now, 5 people crammed into a space meant for one. But somehow, I didn't feel trapped like I had at dinner. These people were here to support me, not tear me down. There's one more thing, Eleanor said quietly. Catherine isn't just living in Oregon. She's thriving. She's a federal judge now married to a wonderful man, 2 kids in college. She built a beautiful life after cutting Martha off. A judge. I repeated, hope sparking for the first time all evening. A judge who specializes in family law and financial crimes. Eleanor smiled sadly. She's followed your career through my updates. She's always asked about you, wished she could have warned you. But Martha threatened to destroy her reputation if she ever contacted you. Nathan checked his watch. Crystal, the detective, is waiting. But I think we should call my sister. First, get a lawyer here before you give any statements. As we prepared to leave the small sanctuary of the bathroom, Brandon cleared his throat. Crystal. The live stream is still going. People are donating to something called Crystal's Freedom Fund. Someone named Catherine just donated $5,000 with a message. He held up the phone so I could read, "For my niece, who's braver than I ever was. Break the cycle. Aunt C." Tears finally came then, not of pain or betrayal, but of recognition. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. The family I'd been born into might be poison, but the family I'd chosen and the family that had been kept from me were ready to fight beside me. "Come on," Nathan said gently, wrapping his arm around me. "Let's go tell the police everything, and then we're going to make sure your parents never hurt you or anyone else again." As we walked toward the interview room, my phone buzzed with one last text. Emma. "Crystal, I know you hate me, but check your bank account. I transferred all $60,000 back, every penny plus interest. It doesn't fix anything, but it's yours. I'm going to testify against them. They destroyed us both." I didn't respond. Money couldn't heal the wounds or restore the trust. But maybe it could buy me the freedom to finally build a life without manipulation, guilt, or violence. A life where love didn't come with a price tag. The detective stood as we entered her expression, professional but kind. "Miss Thompson, I understand you have quite a story to tell. We have all night, and I'm here to listen to every word." I sat down surrounded by chosen family and newfound allies and began to speak my truth for the first time in 28 years. 2 hours into my police interview, Nathan burst through the door with reinforcements. Behind him stood Melissa, my best friend since college, and now a fierce attorney still in her power suit from court. 2 uniformed officers flanked them, their expressions serious. Sorry to interrupt, Detective Morrison, Melissa said briskly, setting her briefcase on the table. I'm Melissa Chang, Miss Thompson's attorney. I need a moment with my client, and these officers have new information relevant to the case. Detective Morrison nodded, gathering her notes. We'll take a 15-minute break. Officers, you can brief me outside. The moment the door closed, Melissa transformed from professional lawyer to concerned friend. Crystal, are you okay? I saw the live stream and drove straight here. Nathan filled me in on the way. I started to say fine, then stopped. No, I'm not okay, but I will be. Good honesty is better. She pulled out her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I've been researching during the drive. Your parents have left quite the paper trail. Nathan gave me access to your accounts, and Crystal, they've been stealing from you for years. What do you mean? Though after tonight's revelations, nothing should surprise me anymore. Melissa turned her screen toward me. Credit cards in your name you never opened. Utilities at their house under your social security number. They've been building debt in your name while keeping their credit clean. Classic identity theft. Nathan paced the small room, his usual calm demeanor cracking. I knew they were toxic, but this is criminal on so many levels. It gets worse. Melissa continued pulling up more documents. I found loan applications. They tried to take out a home equity loan using a forged deed to your condo. The bank flagged it as suspicious, which is the only reason it didn't go through. My hands shook as I processed this information. They tried to steal my home. Attempted grand larceny, identity theft, fraud, and that's just the financial crimes. Melissa cataloged. Combined with tonight's assault and the evidence of ongoing physical abuse, we're looking at serious jail time. A knock interrupted us. Detective Morrison returned with the other officers and a woman in a suit who introduced herself as a representative from Adult Protective Services. Miss Thompson, we've been investigating the live stream and the numerous reports that came in tonight. The APS representative began. We've also received historical documentation from Patricia Nguyen and James Thompson supporting patterns of abuse going back years. Additionally, one of the officers added, we've had contact from a Judge Catherine Williams in Oregon. She submitted a sworn affidavit about similar abuse she suffered from Martha Thompson 40 years ago, establishing a pattern of behavior. Aunt Catherine, even from 3,000 miles away, she was fighting for me. We need to ask about your sister, Detective Morrison said carefully. The video shows her admitting to participating in the financial fraud. Are you wanting to press charges against Emma as well? Before I could answer, Melissa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her eyebrows shot up. Crystal, Emma's here. She wants to talk to you. She says she has evidence. I don't want to see her, I said immediately. She's with someone, Melissa added. A therapist named Dr. Sarah Winters who says she's been treating Emma for trauma related to parental abuse. That stopped me cold. Emma in therapy. Emma admitting to trauma. 5 minutes, I finally agreed. But you all stay. When Emma walked in, she looked nothing like the casual, phone-absorbed sister from dinner. Her face was blotchy from crying. Her designer clothes wrinkled. The therapist beside her, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, kept a supportive hand on her shoulder. Crystal. Emma began, then stopped seeming to struggle for words. I know you hate me. You should. I've been terrible. But I need you to understand something. You have 4 minutes, I said coldly. Dr. Winters spoke up. With Emma's permission, I'd like to provide context. I've been treating her for 2 years for complex PTSD related to parental manipulation and coercive control. They've been controlling me since I was 12. Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. When you left for college, they told me you abandoned us, that you were selfish and would only help if they forced you. They monitored every call, every text. If I tried to tell you the truth, they'd... She rolled up her sleeve, revealing old scars I'd never noticed. They had different methods for each of us. You got guilt and physical intimidation. I got isolation and other things. My anger didn't disappear, but it shifted focus. Why didn't you tell me when you got the job, when you became financially independent? because they threatened to tell my boyfriend about the eating disorder, to call my workplace and say I was unstable. They had access to my medical records from when I was a minor. They held it over me constantly. Emma pulled out a thick folder. But I documented everything. Every threat, every forced transaction, every time they made me lie to you. She set the folder on the table. Bank statements showing they took 40% of every payment you sent. Recordings of them coaching me on what to say to make you feel guilty. Medical records from when they withheld food to trigger my disorder if I didn't comply. Emma also has this, Dr. Winters added, producing another document. A signed confession from your parents' accountant admitting he helped them file fraudulent tax returns, claiming both daughters as dependents while collecting rent from them. Melissa immediately began photographing the documents. This is enough to bury them. Crystal, with Emma's testimony and evidence, we're looking at federal charges now. Tax fraud is IRS territory. I know it doesn't fix what I did, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. I chose to protect myself instead of warning you. I was a coward, but I want to make it right. I'll testify. I'll give you every cent back. I'll do whatever it takes. Detective Morrison had been quietly taking notes. Miss Thompson, both of you, I need to ask, are there other victims, other family members who might have been targeted? Emma and I exchanged glances. Our cousin Jessica, I said slowly. She cut contact 3 years ago after a fight about money. And our Aunt Diana, Emma added, Mom's youngest sister. She supposedly moved to Florida, but no one has her address. We'll look into both, the detective assured us. This appears to be a pattern spanning decades and multiple victims. Another knock interrupted. An officer peered in. Detective, we have a situation. Robert and Martha Thompson are here demanding to see their daughters. They're causing a scene in the lobby. They're also live streaming, the officer added, claiming police brutality and false imprisonment. Their lawyer is with them. Melissa snorted. Let them stream. They're just creating more evidence. She turned to us. Neither of you has to see them. In fact, I strongly advise against it. But Emma straightened, something hardening in her expression. No, I want to face them. Crystal, you don't have to come. But I need to tell them to their faces that I'm done being their weapon against you. If you're going, I'm going, I heard myself say. Not out of obligation this time, but solidarity. Whatever else had happened between us, Emma and I were both victims of the same predators. We'll all go, Nathan said firmly, safely with police escort and everything recorded officially this time. As we prepared to face our parents one last time, Emma slipped her hand into mine. For the first time since we were children, before the manipulation and lies took root, we were sisters again. Broken healing, but united against the common threat that had nearly destroyed us both. Together, she whispered. Together, I confirmed, squeezing her hand despite the stitches pulling at my palm. With our chosen family behind us and the law on our side, we walked toward what would either be our parents' last attempt at control or the moment we finally broke free. Either way, we wouldn't face it alone. The lobby of the police station resembled a circus more than a place of law enforcement. Martha stood at the center phone, held high, narrating to her Facebook Live audience about her wrongful persecution. Robert flanked her, his face purple with rage, while a nervous-looking man in a cheap suit clutched a briefcase. There they are. Martha's voice went shrill as she spotted us emerging with our police escort. Our daughters, who we raised with love, now trying to destroy us with lies. Tell them, Emma. Tell them how we've never laid a hand on you. Emma stepped forward and I saw our parents' confidence waver. They'd expected me alone, not both daughters united. I'll tell them the truth, Emma said, clearly addressing not just our parents, but their live stream audience. How you made me lie to Crystal for money. How you threatened to trigger my eating disorder if I didn't comply. How you stole 40% of every payment meant for me. She's been brainwashed, Martha screeched to her phone. The therapist has filled her head with false memories. Then explain this. Emma held up her phone, hitting play on a recording. Martha's voice filled the lobby. "Tell Crystal your power got shut off. Cry if you have to. She always falls for tears. And remember, 40% comes to us or I'll call your boss about your mental health history." The lawyer tried to grab Emma's phone, but Officer Chen stepped between them. "Sir, I'd advise against any aggressive moves." "Turn off that recording," Robert demanded. "It's illegal. We didn't consent." "Minnesota is a one-party consent state," Melissa interjected smoothly. "Emma legally recorded conversations she was part of, just like James legally recorded the Thanksgiving conversations he participated in." Martha's livestream comments were scrolling rapidly. Even from where I stood, I could see the tide turning. "OMG, they're guilty. Those poor girls? Martha, you're a monster." Furthermore, Melissa continued pulling out her tablet, "We've discovered some interesting financial records. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, did you know the IRS offers rewards for reporting tax fraud because you've been claiming both your adult daughters as dependents while collecting rent from them?" The color drained from Robert's face. Their bargain basement lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. "And there's the identity theft," Melissa added conversationally as if discussing the weather. "Credit cards, utility accounts, attempted home equity fraud. All felonies, by the way." "We're their parents," Martha's voice cracked. "We have rights." "No." I spoke for the first time stepping beside Emma. "You have crimes, years of them, and we have evidence." Detective Morrison joined us, holding a tablet. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I'm placing you both under arrest for assault, identity theft, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." "This is persecution," Martha screamed as officers approached with handcuffs. "We're good Christian people. Tell them, Pastor Michael, tell them." She gestured wildly at her phone screen, but the comments kept flowing. "Christians don't steal from their children." "Shame on you both. Those girls deserve justice." As the officers cuffed Robert, he turned to me with pure hatred. "You ungrateful brat. Everything we did was for this family. You've destroyed us." "No," I replied steadily. "You destroyed yourselves. We're just finally holding you accountable." The next hours blurred together. Booking procedures, more evidence submitted, Melissa coordinating with prosecutors. Nathan never left my side, his steady presence anchoring me through the chaos. By 3 a.m, we sat in Melissa's office, the adrenaline finally fading. Emma curled in an armchair, looking younger than her 25 years. The $60,000 had indeed appeared in my account, plus interest. "The prosecutor is confident," Melissa reported, returning from a phone call. "With the live stream evidence, the recordings, the financial documentation, and both your testimonies, they're looking at serious time. The IRS Criminal Division is also interested." "What happens now?" Emma asked quietly. "Now we build the case," Melissa explained. "Discovery will likely reveal more victims, more fraud. Your parents' house of cards is collapsing." Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. "Crystal, your Aunt Catherine just sent an email. She's flying in from Oregon to support you both. She's also connected you with a victim's rights advocate who specializes in family financial abuse." "I've been getting messages all night," Emma said, scrolling through her phone. "Other relatives, family, friends, people who suspected something but never spoke up. Cousin Jessica wants to testify. She says they did the same thing to her." Over the following weeks, the case expanded like ripples in a pond. The forensic accountant Melissa hired uncovered a decade of fraud. Our parents had stolen not just from us, but from my grandmother Eleanor, forging her signature on checks. They'd taken out credit cards in other relatives' names. The total theft exceeded $200,000. The trial date was set for 3 months out. Our parents, unable to make bail after their assets were frozen, waited in jail. Their lawyer tried repeatedly to broker a plea deal, but the prosecutor, armed with overwhelming evidence, refused anything less than significant jail time. During this time, Emma and I began the hard work of healing. We attended therapy together, unpacking years of manipulation. I learned about the different ways our parents had controlled her, the medical neglect, the threats, the isolation that made my guilt trips look almost benign by comparison. They told me you hated me. Emma confessed during one session that you only helped because they forced you. I thought I was protecting myself by taking the money, but I was just perpetuating the cycle. We also connected with Aunt Catherine, who flew in as promised. Meeting her was like looking at an alternate future, seeing who we could become free from our parents' influence. She shared her own story of escape and rebuilding, offering hope that healing was possible. The first year is the hardest, she told us over coffee. You'll doubt yourself, wonder if you're the villain they painted you as. But then you'll realize the peace that comes from living without manipulation. It's worth every moment of struggle. The preliminary hearing arrived on a gray February morning. Emma and I sat together in the courtroom surrounded by supporters. Nathan on my right, Melissa on my left, Dr. Winters beside Emma, Aunt Catherine and Grandmother Eleanor in the row behind us. Even Mrs. Henderson had come ready to testify about the threats from years ago. Our parents entered in orange jumpsuits, shackled, looking smaller than I remembered. Martha's perfectly styled hair was gone, replaced by gray roots and a messy ponytail. Robert's commanding presence had deflated, leaving a bitter old man. When the judge read the charges, the list seemed endless. 23 counts of fraud, 18 counts of identity theft, assault, tax evasion, elder abuse for what they'd done to Grandmother Eleanor. "How do you plead?" the judge asked. Their new lawyer, apparently the only one willing to take their case, stood. "Not guilty on all charges, Your Honor. My clients are victims of ungrateful children who—" "Counselor," the judge interrupted, "save it for trial. Given the flight risk and the evidence presented, bail is denied." Martha let out a wail that echoed through the courtroom. "This is wrong. We're their parents. We have rights." As they were led away, Robert turned one last time. His eyes met mine across the courtroom, and I waited for the familiar guilt to rise. Instead, I felt only resolve. They'd made their choices for decades. Now they would face the consequences. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I'd prepared a statement with Melissa's help, but Emma stepped forward first. "Our parents stole more than money," she said clearly. "They stole our trust, our relationship as sisters, and years of our lives. But they didn't steal our futures. We're reclaiming those now." The trial itself would come later with more evidence, more testimonies, more painful truths. But standing there in the February cold, surrounded by people who truly loved us, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: freedom. The financial abuse had ended. The physical intimidation was over. The guilt trips had lost their power. Emma and I had a long road ahead to fully heal our relationship, but we were walking it together. As we headed to our cars, Emma paused. "Crystal, I know I can never fully make up for what I did, but I want you to know you're the bravest person I know. You broke the cycle for both of us." I pulled my sister into a hug, the first genuine embrace we'd shared in years. "We broke it together," I corrected, "and we'll heal together too." Nathan drove us home to the condo my parents had tried to steal, where wedding planning materials still sat on the dining table. Life would go on, but different now. Better. Free from the poison that had infected our family for generations. The cycle was broken. The healing could finally begin. The main trial began on a humid June morning, exactly 1 week before what should have been my wedding day. Nathan and I had postponed it, agreeing we needed closure on this chapter before beginning our married life. The courthouse buzzed with media attention. Our case had become something of a sensation after the Thanksgiving live stream went viral, sparking national conversations about financial abuse within families. I sat at the prosecutor's table, my victim impact statement folded in my jacket pocket, the paper soft from repeated handling. Emma sat beside me, her own statement clutched in trembling hands. We'd spent weeks preparing, working with victim advocates to find words for years of manipulation and pain. "The prosecution calls Crystal Thompson," the prosecutor announced. As I took the stand, I forced myself to look at my parents. 6 months in jail had changed them. Martha's hair was entirely gray now, her face gaunt. Robert had lost his intimidating bulk, looking almost fragile in his oversized suit. but their eyes still held that familiar anger, that certainty that they were the victims here. The prosecutor led me through the financial abuse first. Bank statements displayed on screens showed the systematic theft. Every transfer I'd made to Emma thinking I was helping my struggling sister, while she earned more than me. The credit cards opened in my name maxed out on luxury purchases, the attempted theft of my home. "Can you tell the court about the physical abuse?" the prosecutor asked gently. I described the bruises hidden under long sleeves, the accidents that weren't accidents, the escalation that led to Thanksgiving when desperation finally made them careless enough to assault me in front of witnesses. "The defense will likely argue these were isolated incidents," the prosecutor said. "Can you speak to the pattern?" "It was never isolated," I said clearly. "It was systematic, calculated. They knew exactly how much force to use to hurt without leaving marks that couldn't be explained away. They knew exactly which buttons to push to make me comply. They turned love into a weapon and family into a trap." The defense attorney, a woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, stood for cross-examination. "Miss Thompson, isn't it true you voluntarily gave money to your sister? No one forced you to write those checks." "Coercion isn't always about physical force," I replied. "When you're raised from birth to believe your worth is measured by what you provide, when love is conditional on compliance, when you're told family members will suffer if you don't help, yes, you write the checks. That doesn't make it voluntary, it makes it survival." "But you're a successful professional," she pressed. "Surely you could have simply said no. Have you ever tried to say no to someone who's programmed you from infancy to always say yes? Who's convinced you that boundaries equal selfishness, that your needs don't matter, that family means sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left?" I met her eyes steadily. It took 28 years and physical assault in front of witnesses for me to finally find that no. That's not voluntary, that's captivity. When Emma took the stand, her testimony revealed dimensions of abuse I'd never known. Medical records showed hospitalizations for her eating disorder that our parents had hidden from me. Text messages revealed the constant threats, the manipulation, the way they'd weaponized her mental health against her. They told me Crystal would abandon me if she knew the truth. Emma testified, tears streaming, that she only helped because they made her that she actually resented me. They isolated us from each other, made us compete for scraps of approval, while they stole from us both. The most damaging testimony came from unexpected sources. Our cousin Jessica, who'd managed to escape 3 years earlier, revealed similar patterns. Our Aunt Diana, participating via video link from Florida, described decades of financial exploitation before she'd fled. Even family friends testified about the lies spread about me, the careful character assassination designed to ensure no one would believe me if I ever spoke up. Mrs. Henderson's testimony was particularly powerful. She presented emails from 15 years ago, my parents, threatening her career if she didn't discourage my college plans. "They wanted Crystal to stay home and work to support the family," she said. "When I refused to crush a brilliant student's dreams, they tried to destroy me. I've carried guilt for 15 years about not protecting her. I won't stay silent anymore." But the most shocking revelation came from grandmother Eleanor. She discovered while reviewing finances after the arrest that my parents had been stealing from her for over a decade. Forged checks, unauthorized withdrawals, a reverse mortgage taken out on her home without her knowledge. "I was so focused on protecting the girls," Eleanor said from the witness stand. "I didn't realize I was a victim, too. They stole my retirement, my security, my trust. But worse, they made me complicit in hurting my granddaughters by staying silent for so long." On the third day, Aunt Catherine flew in from Oregon to testify. Seeing her on the stand, composed and professional in her judge's robes, I understood what Emma and I could become. She detailed the abuse from 40 years ago, establishing the generational pattern. "Martha learned from our parents that family members were resources to be exploited," Catherine testified. "I escaped, but I see now that only pushed her to perfect her methods with her own daughters. My silence born from self-preservation allowed this cycle to continue. That ends now. Finally, on the fourth day, it was time for victim impact statements. I stood legs shaky and approached the podium. The courtroom fell silent. Your Honor, I began. People often ask why I didn't leave sooner, why I kept giving money, why I protected them even as they hurt me. The answer is complex and simple. Simultaneously, they raised me to believe I had no right to leave. I described the grooming that began in childhood, the way they'd praised me for being helpful while punishing any sign of independence, how they'd convinced me that my success belonged to the family, that keeping money for myself was stealing from them. They didn't just steal money, I continued. They stole my sense of self, my relationship with my sister, my ability to trust. They made me question reality, doubt my own experiences, apologize for existing. The bruises fade, the bank account can be refilled, but learning to believe I deserve better, that's the work of a lifetime. I looked directly at my parents then. You called me ungrateful, selfish. You're right. I am finally gloriously selfish enough to believe I deserve love without price tags. I am ungrateful for abuse disguised as affection, and I am done apologizing for surviving you. Emma's statement was equally powerful, detailing the different but parallel abuse she'd endured, the medical neglect, the threats, the way they'd convinced her that accepting stolen money was her only option for survival. They pitted us against each other, Emma said, voice strong despite her tears, made us compete for scraps of love while they fed on our pain. But Crystal and I found each other again. We're breaking the cycle you tried to trap us in. Your legacy ends with us. When it came time for our parents to speak, their statements were studies in denial. Martha wept about being abandoned by ungrateful children. Robert raged about disrespect and betrayal. Neither acknowledged the evidence. Neither expressed remorse. They'd convinced themselves they were victims, and no amount of proof would change that narrative. The judge's verdict was swift and damning, guilty on all counts. The sentencing would come later, but the maximum penalties were substantial. As the gavel fell, I felt something shift inside me. A weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten I was carrying it, finally lifting. But Martha wasn't done. As officers moved to lead them away, she lunged toward our table. "You've destroyed this family," she screamed. "I hope you're happy. I hope you can live with yourselves." Security quickly restrained her, but I stood meeting her wild eyes one last time. "We're not living with you anymore," I said calmly. "We're living with ourselves, and for the first time, that's enough." As they were dragged away, still screaming about injustice and ingratitude, I felt Emma's hand slip into mine. We stood together, survivors of the same war, finally on the same side. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with questions, but I was done talking for now. Nathan wrapped his arm around me, and we walked away from the cameras, from the drama from the past that had held us captive for so long. "So," Emma said as we reached our cars, "what happens now?" "Now," I said, surprising myself with a smile, "we learn how to be free." The sentencing would come in 2 weeks. There would be restitution hearings, ongoing therapy, the slow work of rebuilding trust. But the hardest part was over. We'd faced them. We'd spoken our truth. We'd won. As Nathan drove us home, I pulled out my phone to find hundreds of messages. Support from strangers who'd seen the trial coverage. Thanks from other abuse survivors who'd found courage in our story. Confirmation that breaking our silence had rippled outward, helping others find their voices too. "You know what?" I told Nathan. "Let's move the wedding back to the original date. I don't want to give them the power to delay our happiness any longer." He smiled, squeezing my hand. "I was hoping you'd say that. June 21st it is." 6 days after the verdict, surrounded by chosen family and free from the shadows of the past, I would walk down an aisle not out of obligation or guilt, but out of pure, unconditional love. The kind my parents never taught me about. the kind I'd learned existed only after escaping them. The kind Emma and I were slowly, carefully learning to rebuild between us, one honest conversation at a time. 2 weeks later, on a morning that felt like the first day of spring despite being mid-June, we gathered for the sentencing. The courtroom was packed not just with our supporters, but with other families who'd followed our case, seeing their own stories reflected in ours. Judge Patricia Williams presided, and yes, the irony wasn't lost on anyone that she shared a first name with both my protective aunt and Catherine's middle name. She'd reviewed all evidence, all testimony, all the pain laid bare over months of legal proceedings. Before I pronounced sentencing, Judge Williams began, "I want to address something. This case has garnered significant media attention, with some calling it a family dispute blown out of proportion. Let me be clear. Financial abuse is not a dispute. Systematic theft is not a misunderstanding. Physical assault is not parenting." She looked directly at my parents, who sat rigidly in their orange jumpsuits. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you were entrusted with the sacred duty of raising children. Instead, you raised victims. You turned your daughters into resources to be exploited, teaching them that love came with invoices attached." The judge continued, "The evidence shows a pattern spanning decades. 2 daughters traumatized, an elderly mother robbed, extended family members exploited, friends and community members deceived. This wasn't momentary poor judgment. This was a criminal enterprise that happened to operate within a family structure. For the crime of aggravated assault, Judge Williams pronounced, 'I sentence you each to 3 years. For identity theft, 5 years. For fraud exceeding $200,000, 7 years. For elder abuse, 4 years. These sentences will run concurrently for a total of 7 years in state prison.'" Martha collapsed wailing. Robert's face went purple, but his lawyer's restraining hand kept him seated. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "you are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims. Your assets will be liquidated to begin this process. You are prohibited from contacting your daughters directly or indirectly for a period of 20 years following your release." "20 years," Martha shrieked. "There are children." "No," Judge Williams said firmly. "They were your victims. Upon release, you will attend mandatory therapy addressing financial abuse, narcissistic behavior patterns, and victim empathy training. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate return to incarceration." As the bailiffs led them away for the last time, Robert turned back. For just a moment beneath the rage, I saw something else, the recognition that he'd lost. Not just the case, but everything. The control, the narrative, the daughters he'd tried to own. "Crystal," he called out, his voice breaking, "I'm your father." "No," I replied, my voice carrying across the courtroom. "You're a stranger who happened to raise me. Fathers protect. You prayed." And then they were gone, disappeared behind heavy doors, beginning 7 years of consequence for decades of abuse. The courtroom erupted in a mixture of tears and applause. Emma and I held each other, both crying, both relieved. It was over. Truly, finally over. In the hallway afterward, we were surrounded by supporters. Aunt Catherine hugged us both tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "You broke the cycle. Eleanor would be so proud." Grandmother Eleanor had passed away peacefully 2 months into the trial, but not before seeing her daughters held accountable. Her last words to us had been, "Live freely now. That's all I want." That afternoon, instead of dwelling on the sentencing, we focused on the future. My wedding was in 5 days, and there was still so much to do. Emma had stepped into the role of maid of honor, and watching her coordinate with the wedding planner, I saw glimpses of the sister I'd lost to manipulation finally emerging again. "You know," she said as we reviewed flower arrangements, "I never thought I'd get to do this. Be your maid of honor. They convinced me you'd never want me in your wedding." "They convinced us of a lot of lies," I reminded her. "But we're writing our own story now." The wedding day dawned perfect, all blue skies and gentle breezes. As I stood before the mirror in my childhood friend's apartment, we'd sold my condo too many memories. I marveled at the woman looking back. She looked like me, but different. Lighter. Free. Emma helped me with my veil, her hands steady and sure. "Crystal," she said softly, "I need you to know something. Every day I choose to be better than what they taught me to be. Some days are harder than others. But seeing you choose love, choose trust after everything, it reminds me it's possible. We're all works in progress," I assured her, squeezing her hand, "but we're progressing together." The ceremony was small, intimate, filled with chosen family. Mrs. Henderson read a poem about resilience. Melissa stood as my bridesmaid, having seen me through the legal battlefield. Uncle James walked me down the aisle, the uncle who'd finally stood up when it mattered most. As Nathan and I exchanged vows, I thought about the promises that really mattered. Not just to love and honor, but to never manipulate or control. To support without keeping score. To give freely without expectation of repayment. To love without price tags. "I promise," I told Nathan, my voice clear and strong, "to build a life with you based on trust, not transactions, on love, not leverage, on choosing each other daily, not because we have to, but because we want to." His eyes shimmered with tears as he made his own vows, promising to always respect my autonomy, to never use love as a weapon, to create a family where affection was abundant and unconditional. As we kissed, sealing our union, applause erupted from our small gathering. But the moment that touched me most came at the reception when Emma stood to give her maid of honor speech. Most people tell stories about growing up with the bride. She began, voice trembling but determined. But Crystal and I didn't really grow up together. We survived together, often not knowing the other was fighting the same battle. We were kept apart by lies, manipulation, and greed. She looked directly at me, tears flowing freely. "But here's what our parents never understood. You can't destroy love, only bury it. And buried things, given the chance, grow roots. Strong roots. Unbreakable roots." Emma raised her champagne glass. "To Crystal and Nathan, who are building something our family never had. A love without conditions, a home without manipulation, a future without fear, and to second chances because sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into." There wasn't a dry eye as we toasted the champagne suite with possibility. The months that followed were a whirlwind of healing and growth. Emma and I continued therapy both individually and together. She used her programming skills to create an app for financial abuse survivors, connecting them with resources and support. Her story of complicity and redemption resonated with others who'd been forced to participate in family abuse dynamics. I returned to work with new boundaries and self-respect. My company, having witnessed the ugly truth through Brandon's live stream, had been nothing but supportive. They even partnered with the nonprofit Melissa and I launched, providing pro bono marketing for our financial abuse awareness campaigns. 1 year after the sentencing, we held our first fundraiser. The ballroom was filled with survivors, advocates, and allies. Emma and I stood together at the podium, no longer victim and accomplice, but partners in purpose. "Financial abuse thrives in silence," I told the audience. "In the shame that says family matters should stay private. In the guilt that says setting boundaries makes you selfish. But silence is what allows cycles to continue." "We're here to break that silence," Emma added, "to tell families drowning in manipulation that there's a way out, that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary, that real love doesn't come with strings attached." The foundation grew rapidly, helping hundreds of families recognize and escape financial abuse. We partnered with banks to flag suspicious family-related transactions. We worked with therapists to develop treatment protocols for both victims and recovering perpetrators. We lobbied for stronger laws protecting adults from familial financial exploitation. 3 years into our work, I received a letter forwarded through the prison system. Martha's handwriting shaky but recognizable. Nathan found me staring at the unopened envelope. "You don't have to read it," he reminded me gently, his hand on my pregnant belly. We were expecting our first child, a daughter we'd already decided to name Eleanor, after the grandmother who'd finally found her voice. I know, I said, but curiosity won. Inside 3 pages of justifications, accusations, and finally at the very end 4 words that might have been remorse. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe, after everything, maybe. I showed it to my therapist who helped me process the complicated emotions. Accountability often comes in stages, she explained. Maybe might be all she's capable of right now. The question is, what do you need for your own healing? What I needed was exactly what I had. A life filled with honest love, a sister who chose recovery over resentment, a husband who understood that my scars were part of my story but not my identity, work that helped others escape their own cycles, and soon a daughter who would grow up knowing love was freely given, not earned through suffering. I kept the letter but didn't respond. Some bridges once burned needn't be rebuilt. Some people, even parents, were safer loved from a distance, or not at all. 5 years after that Thanksgiving dinner that changed everything, Emma and I stood in my backyard watching our children play. Her son 2 years old and fearless. My daughter Eleanor 3, and full of questions about everything. Nathan manned the grill while Emma's husband pushed the kids on the swing set we'd installed together. "Do you ever think about them?" Emma asked quietly, watching little Eleanor negotiate swing turns with her cousin. "Sometimes," I admitted, especially when Eleanor does something that reminds me of Mom before whatever broke inside her turned toxic. I wonder if they've really changed, if prison and therapy fixed what was wrong. Would it matter if it did? I considered this, watching my daughter's face light up with pure joy as she soared through the air. No, I realized, because change doesn't erase harm, and forgiveness doesn't mean accepting people back into your life who've proven unsafe. The kids will ask someday, Emma said, about why they don't have those grandparents. And we'll tell them the truth, I replied. Age appropriately, honestly. That sometimes people who should love you don't know how to do it safely. That walking away from harmful people is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. That they are surrounded by chosen family who love them properly. As if summoned by our conversation, Eleanor ran over, throwing her small arms around my legs. "Mama, push me higher." "Always, baby," I promised, scooping her up. "As high as you want to go." Watching her squeal with delight as she flew through the air, I thought about cycles, the ones we break, the ones we begin, the ones we choose. Our parents had taught us that love was transactional, that family meant ownership, that guilt was a currency to be traded. But here in this backyard, surrounded by people who chose to love us correctly, we were teaching our children something different. Love multiplies when given freely. Family is defined by behavior, not blood. And the greatest gift you can give the next generation is the knowledge that they are valuable simply for existing, not for what they can provide. "Aunt Emma," Eleanor called from the swing. "Watch me fly." "I'm watching, sweetie," Emma called back, and in her voice I heard the echo of every choice she'd made to heal, to grow, to become the aunt she wished she'd had. This was our legacy, not manipulation or guilt or conditional love, but this. Children who knew they could fly because they'd never been taught they were meant to be caged. As the sun set on our impromptu family gathering painting, the sky in shades of hope, I felt the last chains of the past finally fall away. We'd survived. We'd healed. We'd built something beautiful from the ashes of what tried to destroy us. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. Not just surviving those who'd hurt us, but thriving so completely that their harm became nothing more than compost for our growth. "Come on," Nathan called, camera in hand. "Family photo." We gathered together, Emma and her husband Nathan and me, the kids squirming between us, even Melissa who'd stopped by with her new partner. Family, real family, chosen family. As the camera captured our smiles, I knew this photo would never be used to guilt or manipulate. It would simply be what it was, a moment of joy freely shared with people who knew that love should never ever hurt. The cycle was broken, the future was ours, and we were finally truly free. If this story resonated with you, if you've experienced financial abuse within your family, or if you're struggling with guilt about setting boundaries with toxic relatives, please know you're not alone. Have you ever felt trapped between family obligation and self-preservation? What helped you find the strength to choose yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the hope someone else needs to hear. If this video helped you recognize unhealthy family dynamics, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to our channel. Share it with anyone who might need to hear that love shouldn't come with a price tag and that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Thank you for joining Crystal and Emma on their journey to freedom. Remember, you deserve love that lifts you up, not weighs you down. Until next time, be gentle with yourselves and fierce with your boundaries. Stay strong, survivors. Your story matters and your healing is possible.